Welcome to one of the most fascinating journeys in American history. In this video, we are going to explore every single president of the United States, from number 1 all the way to number 47. We will travel from the founding of the nation in the late 18th century, through Civil War, World Wars, economic crises, cultural revolutions, technological transformation, and into the modern global era. This is not just a list of names. This is the story of leadership, power, mistakes, achievements, vision, controversy, and progress. And as we move through history, I want you to think about something important. Which president do you admire the most? Which president do you believe changed America the most? Leave your thoughts in the comments as we go along. Now, before we begin, let us quickly understand something important. There have been 47 presidencies, but only 45 individual men have served as president. Why? Because one president served 2 non-consecutive terms. That president was Grover Cleveland, who served as both the 22nd and the 24th president. And in modern history, Donald Trump also served as the 45th and later the 47th president. So when we count presidents by number, we count presidencies, not individuals. The president serves as head of state, head of government, and commander-in-chief of the armed forces. The office was created in 1789 under the United States Constitution. Each president takes an oath to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution. So let us begin at the very beginning.
President number 1, George Washington, served from 1789 to 1797. George Washington was not only the first president, but he was also the foundation of the office itself. He had already led the Continental Army to victory in the American Revolutionary War. When the new nation needed leadership under its new constitution, Washington was the unanimous choice. He established traditions that still shape the presidency today. He created the cabinet system, supported a strong federal government, and voluntarily stepped down after 2 terms. That decision set a powerful precedent for peaceful transfer of power. Washington is consistently ranked among the most respected presidents in American history. President number 2, John Adams, served from 1797 to 1801. John Adams was a key figure in the American Revolution and helped draft foundational documents. As president, he faced rising tensions with France in what became known as the Quasi-War. His presidency was marked by the controversial Alien and Sedition Acts, which limited criticism of the government. These acts hurt his popularity. Despite political challenges, Adams helped avoid a full-scale war and strengthened the young nation's institutions. President number 3, Thomas Jefferson, served from 1801 to 1809. Thomas Jefferson authored the Declaration of Independence. As president, he completed the Louisiana Purchase in 1803, doubling the size of the United States. This was one of the most important land deals in world history. Jefferson also sent the Lewis and Clark expedition westward, opening exploration of the vast new territory. He promoted individual liberty and limited government, yet his presidency also faced criticism, especially regarding slavery, a deep contradiction in early American history. President number 4, James Madison, served from 1809 to 1817. James Madison is known as the father of the Constitution. During his presidency, the United States fought the War of 1812 against Great Britain. The war included the burning of Washington, including the White House. Although the war was difficult, it strengthened American national identity. Madison's leadership during this period shaped the nation's confidence on the world stage. President number 5, James Monroe, served from 1817 to 1825. James Monroe presided over what became known as the Era of Good Feelings. Political tensions temporarily eased and national pride grew. He introduced the Monroe Doctrine, declaring that European powers should no longer colonize or interfere in the Americas. That doctrine influenced American foreign policy for generations. President number 6, John Quincy Adams, served from 1825 to 1829. The son of John Adams, he brought deep diplomatic experience. His election followed a highly contested and controversial vote in the House of Representatives. Although he supported infrastructure and scientific development, political opposition limited his effectiveness. He later served in Congress and became a strong voice against slavery. President number 7, Andrew Jackson, served from 1829 to 1837. Andrew Jackson represented a shift toward what was called Jacksonian democracy. He positioned himself as a champion of the common man. However, his presidency is also deeply controversial. The Indian Removal Act led to the forced relocation of Native American tribes, including the tragic Trail of Tears. His strong executive style expanded presidential power. Jackson remains one of the most debated presidents in American history. President number 8, Martin Van Buren, served from 1837 to 1841. Van Buren faced a major economic crisis known as the Panic of 1837. The economic downturn led to widespread unemployment and hardship. His response was cautious and limited federal involvement. The recession damaged his popularity and he lost re-election.
We have now covered the first 8 presidents, the founders, and early builders of the American system. Let me ask you something. If you had lived in the early 1800s, which of these leaders would you have trusted most? Was it the steady George Washington, the visionary Thomas Jefferson, or the bold Andrew Jackson? Write your answer in the comments. And if you are enjoying this journey through American history, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel. We are just getting started. In the next section, we will enter a period of rapid expansion, rising tensions over slavery, and eventually civil war.
President number 9, William Henry Harrison, served in 1841. William Henry Harrison holds the shortest presidency in American history. He delivered the longest inaugural address ever given, standing in cold weather without proper protection. Shortly afterward, he became ill and died just 31 days into office. His sudden death created the first real constitutional crisis about presidential succession. Vice President John Tyler assumed the presidency and set the precedent that a vice president becomes full president, not merely acting president. President number 10, John Tyler, served from 1841 to 1845. John Tyler faced significant opposition from his own party. He supported the annexation of Texas, which would later play a role in tensions leading to the Mexican-American War. Tyler's presidency was marked by political isolation, but his actions helped expand the nation's territory. President number 11, James K. Polk, served from 1845 to 1849. James Polk was one of the most expansionist presidents in American history. During his term, the United States acquired vast territories including California and much of the Southwest after the Mexican-American War. Under his leadership, the nation expanded all the way to the Pacific Ocean. Polk achieved nearly all of his campaign goals in a single term and chose not to run again. President number 12, Zachary Taylor, served from 1849 to 1850. A military hero from the Mexican-American War, Zachary Taylor had little political experience. His presidency came during rising tensions over whether new territories would allow slavery. He died in office after about 16 months, again raising succession questions. President number 13, Millard Fillmore, served from 1850 to 1853. Fillmore signed the Compromise of 1850, which attempted to ease tensions between slave states and free states. The compromise delayed civil war, but did not resolve the deeper conflict over slavery. His support of the Fugitive Slave Act damaged his legacy in the eyes of many historians. President number 14, Franklin Pierce, served from 1853 to 1857. Franklin Pierce supported the Kansas-Nebraska Act, which allowed territories to decide on slavery through popular vote. This led to violent conflict in what became known as Bleeding Kansas. His presidency is often ranked among the least effective due to rising national division. President number 15, James Buchanan, served from 1857 to 1861. James Buchanan's presidency occurred just before the Civil War. Southern states began seceding from the Union during his final months in office. Buchanan believed secession was illegal, but also believed the federal government had limited power to stop it. His inability to prevent the crisis contributed to his poor historical reputation. President number 16, Abraham Lincoln, served from 1861 to 1865. Abraham Lincoln led the nation through its greatest internal conflict, the Civil War. His primary goal was to preserve the Union. In 1863, he issued the Emancipation Proclamation, declaring freedom for enslaved people in Confederate territories. Under his leadership, the Union ultimately prevailed. Lincoln's Gettysburg Address remains one of the most powerful speeches in American history. In April 1865, shortly after the war ended, Lincoln was assassinated. He is widely regarded as one of the greatest presidents in American history.
We have now reached one of the most defining moments in American history, the Civil War. Before we continue, let us pause for an important question. Do you believe Abraham Lincoln was the most influential president in American history? Or do you think someone else made a bigger impact? Write your answer below. Now let us take a short educational break.
Educational break 1. Who can become president? The United States Constitution sets 3 main requirements to become president. First, the person must be at least 35 years old. Second, the person must have lived in the United States for at least 14 years. Third, and most importantly, the person must be a natural-born citizen of the United States. This means the individual must have been a citizen at birth. Naturalized citizens, even if they become governors, senators, or hold other high offices, cannot become president under current constitutional rules. This rule has shaped American political life for over 2 centuries. Presidents serve 4-year terms. Originally, there was no official limit on the number of terms a president could serve. However, after Franklin D. Roosevelt was elected 4 times, the 22nd Amendment was passed in 1951, limiting presidents to 2 terms. Now let us continue our journey. In the next section, we will explore Reconstruction, industrial expansion, and the rise of the United States as a global power. President number 17, Andrew Johnson, served from 1865 to 1869. Andrew Johnson became president after the assassination of Abraham Lincoln. He faced the enormous task of rebuilding the nation during Reconstruction. Johnson supported a lenient approach toward the southern states. This brought him into direct conflict with Congress, which wanted stronger protections for formerly enslaved people. He was impeached by the House of Representatives but narrowly avoided removal from office in the Senate. His presidency remains one of the most controversial in American history. President number 18, Ulysses S. Grant, served from 1869 to 1877. Ulysses S. Grant was the commanding general of Union forces during the Civil War. As president, he supported civil rights legislation and fought against groups that attempted to undermine Reconstruction. However, his administration was also marked by corruption scandals involving members of his cabinet. Despite this, Grant is often credited for his efforts to protect the rights of African Americans during Reconstruction. President number 19, Rutherford B. Hayes, served from 1877 to 1881. Hayes became president after one of the most disputed elections in American history. The Compromise of 1877 effectively ended Reconstruction by withdrawing federal troops from the South. This decision had long-lasting consequences for civil rights in the region. Hayes focused on civil service reform and attempted to reduce political corruption. President number 20, James A. Garfield, served in 1881. Garfield served only a few months before being assassinated. His death led to significant reforms in the federal civil service system. The tragedy highlighted the need for a merit-based system rather than political favoritism in government jobs. President number 21, Chester A. Arthur, served from 1881 to 1885. Chester Arthur surprised many critics by supporting civil service reform after taking office. He signed the Pendleton Civil Service Reform Act, which created competitive exams for certain government positions. Arthur helped professionalize parts of the federal government. President number 22, Grover Cleveland, served from 1885 to 1889. Grover Cleveland was known for his commitment to fiscal responsibility and limited government. He vetoed many bills that he believed were wasteful. He lost re-election, but would return later. Remember, Cleveland is unique in American history. He served 2 non-consecutive terms. President number 23, Benjamin Harrison, served from 1889 to 1893. Benjamin Harrison strengthened the United States Navy and supported economic legislation including high tariffs. He also signed laws that admitted 6 new states to the Union. His presidency reflected the growing industrial power of the United States. President number 24, Grover Cleveland, served from 1893 to 1897. Cleveland returned to office during a severe economic depression known as the Panic of 1893. He maintained his commitment to limited government intervention. His second term was politically difficult and economically challenging. President number 25, William McKinley, served from 1897 to 1901. William McKinley led the nation during the Spanish-American War. The war resulted in the United States acquiring territories such as Puerto Rico, Guam, and the Philippines. This marked a turning point as America began emerging as a global power. McKinley was assassinated in 1901, bringing a new and energetic leader to office.
We have now entered the age of industry and expansion. America was transforming from a young republic into a modern industrial nation. Let me ask you something. Do you believe the United States should have expanded beyond its original borders? Or should it have remained smaller and more focused internally? Share your thoughts below. And if you are still with us on this incredible journey, thank you. Make sure you subscribe, because we are about to enter the 20th century, a period of global wars, economic collapse, and unprecedented transformation.
President number 26, Theodore Roosevelt, served from 1901 to 1909. Theodore Roosevelt brought energy and reform to the presidency. He was only 42 years old when he took office, becoming the youngest president in American history at that time. Roosevelt strengthened the federal government's role in regulating big business. He was known as a trust buster for breaking up large monopolies. He also expanded the national park system and supported conservation. On the international stage, he helped negotiate the end of the Russo-Japanese War and won the Nobel Peace Prize. His leadership marked the rise of the United States as an assertive global power. President number 27, William Howard Taft, served from 1909 to 1913. Taft continued some of Roosevelt's trust-busting efforts, but had a more cautious leadership style. He later became Chief Justice of the United States Supreme Court, the only person to serve as both President and Chief Justice. His presidency revealed divisions within his political party. President number 28, Woodrow Wilson, served from 1913 to 1921. Woodrow Wilson led the United States during World War I. Initially advocating neutrality, he later guided the nation into the conflict in 1917. After the war, Wilson proposed the League of Nations to promote international cooperation and peace. Although the United States did not join the League, Wilson's vision shaped future global diplomacy. Domestically, he supported progressive reforms, but his administration also faced criticism regarding civil rights issues. President number 29, Warren G. Harding, served from 1921 to 1923. Harding promised a return to normalcy after the war. His administration focused on economic growth and reducing government involvement. However, his presidency became associated with corruption scandals, most notably the Teapot Dome scandal. He died in office in 1923. President number 30, Calvin Coolidge, served from 1923 to 1929. Coolidge believed strongly in limited government and pro-business policies. The economy expanded during much of his presidency in what became known as the Roaring Twenties. He famously said that the business of America is business. His calm and quiet leadership style contrasted with the rapid economic growth of the era. President number 31, Herbert Hoover, served from 1929 to 1933. Herbert Hoover took office just months before the stock market crash of 1929. The crash triggered the Great Depression, the most severe economic crisis in American history. Hoover believed in voluntary cooperation rather than direct federal relief. As unemployment soared, his policies were widely criticized. His presidency ended amid deep economic hardship. President number 32, Franklin D. Roosevelt, served from 1933 to 1945. Franklin Roosevelt led the nation through both the Great Depression and World War II. He introduced the New Deal, a series of programs designed to provide relief, recovery, and reform. His fireside chats reassured citizens during difficult times. After the attack on Pearl Harbor in 1941, the United States entered World War II. Under Roosevelt's leadership, the Allies ultimately achieved victory. He was elected 4 times, the only president to serve more than 2 terms. He died in office in 1945. President number 33, Harry S. Truman, served from 1945 to 1953. Harry Truman assumed office at the end of World War II. He made the historic decision to use atomic bombs against Japan, leading to the end of the war in the Pacific. Truman also helped establish the United Nations and supported the Marshall Plan to rebuild Europe. His presidency marked the beginning of the Cold War.
We have now reached the midpoint of our journey. The United States has faced economic collapse, global war, and dramatic change. Before we continue into the modern era, let us pause again for an important educational moment.
Educational Break 2: Presidential Salary and Protection. The President of the United States currently earns an annual salary set by Congress. In addition to salary, the President receives an expense allowance and access to official residences and transportation. The White House serves as the official residence and workplace. Air Force One is the official aircraft used for presidential travel. The President is protected by the United States Secret Service. Protection became permanent after the assassination of President William McKinley in 1901. Security measures have increased over time due to evolving threats. After leaving office, former presidents receive a pension, staff support, and continued security protection. These provisions ensure stability, continuity, and safety for the nation's highest office.
Now we move into the second half of the 20th century. This is the age of television, the space race, civil rights, and rapid technological transformation. In the next section, we will meet leaders who shaped the modern world as we know it.
President number 34, Dwight D. Eisenhower, served from 1953 to 1961. Dwight Eisenhower was a 5-star general and Supreme Allied commander during World War II. As president, he oversaw a period of relative prosperity and stability. He supported the creation of the Interstate Highway System, one of the largest infrastructure projects in American history. During his presidency, the Cold War intensified, and the space race began after the Soviet Union launched Sputnik. Eisenhower maintained a cautious foreign policy while strengthening America's global alliances. President number 35, John F. Kennedy, served from 1961 to 1963. John F. Kennedy brought youth and inspiration to the presidency. He faced intense Cold War challenges, including the Cuban Missile Crisis, which brought the world to the brink of nuclear war. Kennedy promoted the space program and challenged America to land a man on the moon. He also began advancing civil rights legislation. In November 1963, Kennedy was assassinated in Dallas, shocking the nation and the world. He remains one of the most remembered presidents in American history. President number 36, Lyndon B. Johnson, served from 1963 to 1969. Lyndon Johnson pushed forward major civil rights legislation, including the Civil Rights Act and the Voting Rights Act. These laws transformed American society by outlawing segregation and protecting voting rights. Johnson also expanded social programs through his Great Society initiatives. However, his presidency was deeply marked by the Vietnam War, which divided the nation. President number 37, Richard Nixon, served from 1969 to 1974. Richard Nixon opened diplomatic relations with China and signed arms control agreements with the Soviet Union. These were major achievements in Cold War diplomacy. However, his presidency ended in scandal. The Watergate investigation revealed illegal activities connected to his campaign. Facing impeachment, Nixon resigned in 1974. He is the only president in American history to resign from office. President number 38, Gerald Ford, served from 1974 to 1977. Gerald Ford became president after Nixon's resignation. He sought to restore trust in government during a difficult period. One of his most controversial decisions was granting a full pardon to Richard Nixon. Ford also faced economic challenges and rising inflation. President number 39, Jimmy Carter, served from 1977 to 1981. Jimmy Carter emphasized human rights in foreign policy. He successfully brokered the Camp David Accords between Egypt and Israel. However, his presidency faced economic struggles and the Iran hostage crisis. Despite political difficulties, Carter later earned global respect for his humanitarian work after leaving office. President number 40, Ronald Reagan, served from 1981 to 1989. Ronald Reagan brought a strong conservative vision to the presidency. He reduced taxes, increased military spending, and promoted free market policies. During his second term, relations with the Soviet Union improved significantly. The Cold War began moving toward its conclusion. Reagan remains a highly influential and widely discussed president. President number 41, George H.W. Bush, served from 1989 to 1993. George H.W. Bush led the nation during the end of the Cold War. The Berlin Wall fell during his presidency, and the Soviet Union dissolved, reshaping global politics. He also built a broad international coalition during the Gulf War to expel Iraqi forces from Kuwait. Domestically, he signed the Immigration Act of 1990 into law. This landmark legislation modernized the United States immigration system and formally created the Diversity Visa Program, expanding legal immigration opportunities and increasing employment-based visa categories. Since its introduction, more than 1 million immigrants from around the world have received permanent residency through this program, using it as a pathway to live and work in the United States and pursue the American dream. Bush was widely praised for his experience in foreign affairs and steady leadership during a time of historic global transition.
We have now reached the end of the Cold War era. Let me ask you something important. Which of these leaders do you believe handled international crises most effectively? Was it Kennedy during the Cuban Missile Crisis, Reagan during the final years of the Cold War, or another president entirely? Tell us your opinion in the comments. And if you are enjoying this journey, please support the channel with a like and subscribe. We are about to enter the modern digital era. But first, one final educational break.
Educational break 3, elections and the Electoral College. The president is not chosen directly by popular vote alone. Instead, Americans vote for electors pledged to a candidate. These electors form what is called the Electoral College. Each state receives a number of electoral votes based on its representation in Congress. To win the presidency, a candidate must receive a majority of electoral votes. If no candidate reaches a majority, the House of Representatives decides the outcome. This system has led to several elections where the candidate who won the popular vote did not win the presidency. The Electoral College remains one of the most debated features of American democracy. Now, let us move into the 21st century. President number 42, Bill Clinton, served from 1993 to 2001. Bill Clinton presided over a period of economic expansion and budget surpluses. During his presidency, unemployment fell and technological innovation accelerated, particularly with the growth of the internet. He signed major legislation, including welfare reform and trade agreements. However, his presidency was also marked by personal scandal and impeachment proceedings. He was impeached by the House of Representatives, but acquitted by the Senate and completed his second term. President number 43, George W. Bush, served from 2001 to 2009. George W. Bush took office after one of the closest elections in American history. His presidency was dramatically shaped by the terrorist attacks of September 11, 2001. In response, the United States launched military operations in Afghanistan and later Iraq. Bush introduced domestic security reforms and created the Department of Homeland Security. His presidency also saw the financial crisis of 2008, which triggered a severe global recession. President number 44, Barack Obama, served from 2009 to 2017. Barack Obama became the first African-American president of the United States. He took office during the height of the financial crisis and oversaw economic recovery efforts. He signed the Affordable Care Act, expanding healthcare coverage. His presidency also included the operation that led to the death of Osama bin Laden. Obama emphasized diplomacy, climate policy, and international cooperation. He completed 2 full terms. President number 45, Donald Trump, served from 2017 to 2021. Donald Trump entered office as a businessman and political outsider. Immigration became one of the central issues of his presidency. His administration introduced stricter border enforcement, reduced certain visa programs, and took a firm stance against illegal immigration. These policies were supported by some Americans who believed tougher controls were necessary. At the same time, they were criticized by others who felt the approach was too harsh and damaging to America's image as a nation built by immigrants. Many industries in the United States rely on immigrant labor, including agriculture, construction, hospitality, and technology. He appointed 3 Supreme Court justices, shaping the future direction of the judiciary. His presidency was marked by strong political polarization and intense national debate. President number 46, Joe Biden, served from 2021 to 2025. Joe Biden brought decades of experience in public service to the presidency. His administration focused on economic recovery after the pandemic, infrastructure investment, and international alliances. Major legislation addressed infrastructure modernization and domestic manufacturing. His presidency navigated global tensions and economic challenges in a rapidly changing world. President number 47, Donald Trump, began serving again in 2025. In an extraordinary political development, Donald Trump returned to office, becoming both the 45th and the 47th president. This placed him among the rare leaders in American history to serve non-consecutive terms. His return came at a time of significant political division within the United States. Debates over immigration policy became especially intense. His firm and restrictive approach toward immigration attracted strong support from some Americans, while raising concerns among others both inside the country and around the world. For many immigrants who once dreamed of moving to the United States, uncertainty increased and difficult questions emerged about the future. Yet throughout American history, political periods shift and evolve. The United States has long been shaped by waves of immigrants who contributed to its economy, culture, and innovation. Presidential terms are limited, and leadership changes over time. Regardless of political cycles, America continues to be viewed globally as a land of opportunity, where ambition, hard work, and resilience can still open doors. Trump's return marked another significant chapter in modern political history, one that will be debated and analyzed for years to come.
And just like that, we have traveled from the founding fathers in the 18th century to the present day. 47 presidencies, more than 2 centuries of leadership, wars, economic crises, innovation, expansion, civil rights movements, global alliances, and dramatic political change. Let me ask you one final question. If you could sit down with any president from this entire list, who would you choose, and what would you ask them? Would it be George Washington about the birth of the nation, Abraham Lincoln about preserving unity, Franklin Roosevelt about leading through crisis, or perhaps a modern president about navigating the digital age? Tell us in the comments, and if you made it this far, you truly appreciate history. Please like the video and subscribe so you never miss future deep dives like this one. Now, before we close, I want to take a brief moment to speak to those of you who are not only fascinated by American history, but who dream about building your own future in the United States. For more than 27 years, U.S. Green Card Office has provided professional immigration services and assistance for the Diversity Visa Program, also known as the Green Card Program. Over 400,000 families have been assisted in taking important steps toward living and working in the United States with the help of U.S. Green Card Office. The Diversity Visa Program offers a legal pathway for eligible individuals from qualifying countries to apply for permanent residency. If you have ever imagined building a life in America, working, studying, raising a family, or pursuing opportunity, this program may be relevant for you. Professional guidance can help ensure that your application is prepared correctly and submitted properly. Dreams require action, and action requires accurate preparation. Now back to our closing thoughts.
The presidency of the United States is more than a political office. It is a symbol of continuity, stability, and democratic transition. Every 4 years, leadership can change peacefully. Every president, whether praised or criticized, leaves a mark on history. Some are remembered for unity, some for conflict, some for reform, some for controversy. But together, they form a continuous story, from a fragile new republic in 1789 to a global superpower in the modern era. The office of the president has evolved, adapted, and endured. History is not only about leaders, it is about the people who vote, who debate, who serve, who protest, who build, and who dream. The presidency reflects the nation itself, and the story continues.
Thank you for joining us on this complete journey through every president of the United States. If you found value in this long-form documentary-style experience, let us know in the comments. Would you like more deep historical explorations like this? This has been over 2 centuries of leadership in one continuous story, and now the next chapter is still being written. Thank you for watching and see you in the next video.